ready for the event?
We are ready for the event.
Minnesota Public Radio, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is Minnesota Public Radio. How do you hear me?
We have you loud and clear. Welcome aboard the International Space Station.
Well, thank you much, Karen and Chris. Nice talking with you. Karen,
it's nice talking to you, too. How's the weather in Minnesota?
Beautiful. It's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for asking. Karen, I'm curious, one of the things you're doing is studying how living in space affects humans. Describe how living in the space station for more than 2 months now has affected you physically.
Well, if we didn't work out as much as we do, I think we would see a lot more changes. I think our bone density and our muscle mass is one of the main things we're worried about, but we exercise about 2 hours every single day. So we're really mitigating that. Other than that, you notice things like the calluses on your feet kind of start to go away because you don't need, you're not walking around every day to form those calluses. And so things like that you notice.
I would think that 2 hours a day sounds exhausting, but with the weightlessness, it must be a different situation. Do you have to modify your equipment and your exercise?
What we do for exercise, we have what's called an resistive exercise device, which is kind of like lifting weights, and it actually uses the pull of a vacuum in cylinders. And we also have a treadmill that we bungee ourselves to stay on the floor as we run. And we also have a bicycle that we can use, and that we use those two for our cardiovascular health.
There's the physiological effects of being in space, but physically it's very tight quarters up there. It's got to be like having 6 people in a small tent on a camping trip. How's the interpersonal side of the equation for you?
It's really good. Actually, it's not that, it really isn't that crowded. The International Space Station is quite large. We have a number of modules. We have the Russian segment and the United States segment, and we have, 10 modules or so on the U.S. segment that are quite large, the size of a school bus or bigger. So it's very easy. We each have our own sleeping quarters. If you feel like you do need to get away from each other. And when we're working throughout the day, sometimes we're working in the same module, sometimes we're separated. So really the privacy is good, and interpersonally, I think this is a great place to be.
Now, you're doing a lot of studying, as I mentioned, about the space effects on humans. You're also investigating what caused water to leak into the helmet worn by your crewmate, Luca Parmitano, during that spacewalk on July the 16th. Have you figured out anything yet?
Well, hopefully you'll let somebody from Maine to speak to you in Minnesota. I'm glad to answer this question because I had the fortune or misfortune to be out there with Luca. And right now the engineers have put together a really detailed troubleshooting plan that we're about halfway through executing. And I think the best way to answer it is we know what the problem wasn't. There were about 5 or 6 items that it could have been, and we've eliminated most of them, and we're down to 2 or 3 really prime suspects, and we'll with 1 or 2 more tests, we'll have exactly identified the problem and make sure that we can, if we can, we'll fix it in space, but we might have to bring that suit back to Earth and fix it there. And but most importantly, making sure that all the rest of the spacesuits in our inventory are safe for subsequent spacewalks.
I know you all are getting ready for the arrival of a Japanese cargo ship. What's your responsibility when that ship arrives?
The HTV, which is coming up next week, actually, it is grappled by the Canadian robotic arm. And so Chris and I will actually be working together at the robotic workstation to use that arm to grapple the vehicle as it comes in. It's going to rendezvous automatically under its own systems, and when it gets to a certain distance away, we'll be in the cupola, and we'll be able to monitor the approach as it gets closer to space station, and then reach out and grab it. And then the controllers on the ground will actually use the robotic arm to install it to one of the hatchways on the space station, and then we'll be able to go in and get all the goodies that are arriving.
You're doing a lot of work, Karen and Chris, and, of course, the other crew members, too. What do you all do to unwind?
It's funny, the week goes by and you really realize there's not a lot of free time, especially on the weekdays. And by the time we finish our work day and get done with our daily planning conference that we do with all the space centers around the world, we, then it's time for dinner and phone calls to family and that type of thing, and then the day is done. On the weekends, we have about half a day on Saturday where we have free time, and then most of Sunday. And we all like to go and take pictures out of the window. We read. We just sit and chat with each other. I brought some projects to work on. I'm trying to do a little bit of sewing. I haven't done as much as I would like, but like I said, the time just goes so fast here.
Well, Karen, your pictures are gorgeous on Twitter, by the way.
Thank you. I'm trying to show everybody who isn't as privileged as we are to be able to come here what it looks like from this vantage point. Like I said, we're so privileged to be able to come and see the Earth and how beautiful it looks from here. And since so few people get to do that, I think sharing, and I try to get my pictures to look in a way so it looks like it does when we look, and the colors as vibrant as it is when we look out the window, and just try and share what we're seeing.
So, Karen, have you finally gotten a chance to take a picture of your hometown of Vining, Minnesota from space?
I did a couple weeks ago, thanks to Chris. He knew I had been waiting to get a picture of it, and every single time we passed over, it was very cloudy. And then one time I was working on a project, and he called over intercom and said, "Karen, it's clear in Minnesota." And so I went down to the cupola and got some pictures, and I think everybody in my hometown area really enjoyed it.
Say, final question, do you both think you'll be ready to come home after about 6 months in space?
I think 6 months is a good amount of time. I think it's enough time. You kind of want to go home before you're craving going home, I think. But of course, with our families at home, everybody, I'm going to be looking forward to going home. I hate leaving this place, but I know I'll be looking forward to going home in November.
Karen and Chris, thanks.
Thanks for joining us.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the Minnesota Public Radio portion of the event. Please stand by for a voice check from the U.S. Navy.
Station, this is U.S. Navy production. How do you hear me?
I hear you loud and clear. It's great to be with fellow service members today.
Thank you, sir.
Good to be with you, sir.
From the early days to the present, the Navy has been an important contributor to America's efforts in space, both unmanned and manned. In fact, more astronauts have graduated from the Naval Academy than any other higher education institution. I'm Petty Officer Brandy Wills, and here in studio with me, I have Midshipman Second Class Lucas Papadakis, an aerospace engineering major at the Academy and a hopeful future astronaut. And live from the International Space Station is Commander Chris Cassidy, a Navy SEAL, to discuss the Navy's role in space and his own experiences.
Thank you for joining us today, Commander Cassidy.
Hey, my pleasure. It's great to be with you today.
Sir, our first question is, why is space important to the Navy?
Well, obviously, communication is vital to anything we do, from as simple things as our own relationships to war to space. And the space environment for the Navy is critical for our communications network, tracking our ships, responding to disasters or conflicts, and everything that we do on a day-to-day basis, and having the ability to track and manage all of this infrastructure all around the world. It's actually really critical to our warfighting capability, I think.
How has your Navy service prepared you for being an astronaut?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think that to be successful as an astronaut, you need to have the ability to think operationally and do things while you're communicating on the radio, while you're processing multiple things. And that's what I've learned over my few months here, and that was really instilled in me from my first days of stepping onto the Naval Academy yard all the way through being groomed as a junior officer and mentored by some of the senior enlisted that I had the privilege to work with. And just really the fundamental things of what we need our Navy warfighters, our military warfighters to do translates exactly to life in space. It's an operational environment. We're doing things that we can get us hurt or hurt the equipment that we're working with. Neither one of those are good, and it's that innate sense of how to do that, I think, is instilled in every one of us that joins the service.
Are there any similarities between the SEAL and the astronaut communities?
Well, I'm asked that often, actually, and I think at face value, it's very similar training pattern. In the SEAL teams, much like the rest of the Navy, on a typical pre-deployment workup, you go together with some basic unit level training, and then as you get more proficient, you'll start integrating with other units until you prepare for your final exercises prior to deployment. And we have a very similar pattern here in the training for space. At the beginning of being assigned to a space mission, you train up on individual systems, just you and an instructor learning the wiring diagrams and how the system works, and then you build up to an integrated simulation environment where you're working with other crew members from other countries and on multiple systems at the same time, all that culminates with some exams prior to launch, and we go on our mission. We're up here for 6 months, just like on a Navy deployment is typically 6 months. So that training pattern is very similar. And then the other thing is my SEAL team life was much more physical, and we do exercise quite a bit up here in space. It's essential, but I think I find myself it's more of an academic environment in the qualification process to be assigned to a flight here at NASA.
You mentioned the physical side, sir. What kind of physical training was required for the demands of living in orbit?
Well, it's interesting. We work out pretty regularly on the Earth, but everybody has busy schedules, just like everybody else when we're training up for a mission. But when we get to space, it's not just a matter of what our desire to work out. It's essential. We have to do it. If we did not exercise, our bones would think, I have nothing to do. I can relax. I can atrophy. I don't have to carry a load, and our bone density would constantly fall off, much like an elderly person with osteoporosis. And the only way to really combat that is resistive exercise, weightlifting type strength training on the large muscles, your legs, lower body, and back. And that's what we concentrate on. We do a lot of squats and deadlifts and that sort of thing to keep our mostly our legs and our hips healthy. That's absolutely critical. We also have a bike and a treadmill that we use as well, but that's just to maintain our cardiovascular health. The real true criticality is keeping our bones healthy.
Why do you think the Naval Academy has produced more astronauts than any other higher education institution?
Well, I think it's just a matter of numbers, maybe. If you look at the astronaut office, about half of the astronaut office is military. The numbers are a little bit different right now. We're sort of going through a transition period, but historically, half the astronauts have been active duty military and half civilian. And when you look at those military officers that come to the astronaut office, it's probably pretty close. I mean, we might have the exact the lead, if you will, over the Air Force, which is a good thing because I'll be coming home in the first week in October and going to our homecoming where we beat Air Force. But that aside, the Air Force and the Navy probably have the two close are really close in the number of astronauts we produce. The Army has some too. The Coast Guard Academy has an astronaut, but it's just a matter of the sheer volume that we have.
What's next for you, sir?
What's next for me? Well, what I like to say up here is the only important thing in the space station is what you're doing right at this time, because anything else we can screw up and cause damage to the vehicle or worse to ourselves. So what's next for me is to make sure that I keep this place safe and running ship shape until it's time for me to leave. After that, when I come home in September, I will go through about a 2-month rehabilitation period, get myself healthy, make sure and close out all the experiments that we have ongoing on ourselves, and then do a little bit of public relations things as I prepare for either my next assignment as a space flyer, but probably I will just work in the astronaut office supporting other ongoing missions and my friends that have the privilege of coming up here. Beyond that, in the five-year time horizon, it'd be great if I could come back to space, but we'll leave that up to my bosses.
Thank you for your time, Commander Cassidy.
Thank you very much, Midshipman Papadakis. Excuse me if I got your name wrong. It's best of luck to you as you pursue your dreams, and to all of you out there, go Navy.
Station, this is Houston ACR. Thank you. That concludes the event.
Thank you, Minnesota Public Radio and the U.S. Navy. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications.
Copy that.